So one of the first things that we want to make sure you've got covered is budgeting. Um, Obviously, you only have so much budget that you have available to spend. So it's important to really prioritize where you can make the most impact. One of the things to do is to make sure that you're increasing your budget sufficiently to ensure that your ads don't get suppressed during peak days and times. It's a tough thing to do, but you don't want a competitor to be able to buy cheap placement on key terms that you usually win because you ran out of budget. Should not be acceptable to you. So you want to make sure you're constantly adjusting your budget, or you're setting it high enough that it does allow it to never run out of budget. Wes, I know we were talking earlier about the new functionality Amazon has to be able to do some of that dynamically. Do you want to chime in with some of that?
Yeah, for sure. So, Amazon has set up, I think we've probably seen in the sponsored product campaigns, and you have to go into the campaign level to see it. But inside of the sponsored product campaigns, you can look at their new budget rules. So you can set up some rules so that if, for example, either performance based or on a schedule, you can set some rules up so that if your ACoS meets a certain performance, Amazon will dynamically increase your budget. One of the things that, I would say definitely test this, because one of the things that Amazon says, for example, so if you have an ACoS level of 8% and you tell Amazon to increase your budget by 10%, does that mean though that later in the day, if Amazon needed to increase it more than 10%, it would? That's the thing I would encourage everyone to test. Amazon's FAQ page on this says that you can set up multiple rules for a campaign to satisfy certain conditions. So for example, if you want to increase something by 20% November 1st to the 30th, and then increase it 100% on Black Friday, you can schedule those as well too. So, especially going into Q4, I would say don't just set it and forget it. Go back and look and double check, but those budget rules can definitely help out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big improvement over what Amazon has done for a long time, which is when you log into the campaign manager, you get this interstitial, these campaigns are out of budget, or they send emails, but they've never historically, even looked at, is this potentially profitable? Of course, they don't know what anybody's allowable ACoS is, but you could be running 100% ACoS and they're telling you increase your budget. So this is a big improvement over that. That's for sure.
For sure. I know we discussed it in the past too as well, but also in Campaign Manager, you can now go look at, there's actually a budget tab above where you've got management drafts, and now you've got budget and targeting. You can go look at your budgets and set some timeframes and look at campaigns that have run out of budget, and Amazon will try to give you estimations of how much sales you're missing by those budgets being, running out before the end of the day. Obviously, you can do some filtering there, filter for, acceptable ACoS levels, to make sure that those that are performing well, and then it'll allow you to increase your budget right there on that screen. So that's also very helpful. You can see Amazon is trying to make it really easy for you to spend more money with them. That's, I know that's,
shocking.
Right.
So I know we have to move pretty quickly through these slides. I did want to call out kind of to your point about the budgets regarding this third bullet about increasing bids. That's the other thing is now, as soon as you go into the campaign manager, you can see the percent of top of search. And so that's another thing is, if you're running efficient and you're below your ACoS, but you've got, and I've really been surprised at some of these things. We're bidding pretty aggressively, but they're still saying, our top of search impression share is, a lot lower than I would have thought. If you're running really efficient and you see that, that's where you want to adjust your bids. Increasing your daily budget's not going to help. That's where you got to increase your bids or your top of search modifier, things like that.
And by the way, most people look at the top of search and they look at the higher cost per click. And the reality is that is true. You're going to pay more to be at the top of the page in almost all cases. But in almost all cases, if you look at the actual A costs, because of the high conversion rates, you actually perform better on those top of search if your product looks, in all their cases, looks great. Good reviews, good pricing, good main image. The product looks its part. It'll actually be very productive to be at the top of the page. So constantly, play around with that and validate that.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say it also, if you look at your reporting and you look at placements, that top of search can be, the great majority of the order volume as well.
Yeah, that's the report where you'd find out to quantify it. It's the placements report in the campaign manager, and then reports and run placements for sponsored products, and that'll tell you. But you're going to, play around with it as you index higher for, top of search. Sometimes we will even bid really low, but then do a huge index for top of search so that you're actually effectively spending money on top of search. That can be a good tactic. Paul, I know you do very detailed budgeting when working with clients, and I thought it'd be helpful for you to kind of talk about what are you expecting for these key events, and how would you go about sharing some tips on budgeting.
Yeah, so we've called out a couple of the key ones, and so to Wes's point about budget, if you're already spending, so if you're managing your budgets based on a daily budget or daily spend cap, and you typically are pretty close to that, you can see these numbers here: Black Friday, Cyber Monday, ballpark, you better double it. So there's that. I have heard the numbers that I've seen and read are that in general, and all kinds of caveats, that whatever you spend in a typical month, you should expect to spend twice as much, in December. And really starting now, it's really ramping up. We'll get into what's happening with search trends right now. But the season it's already happening. People are starting to do their research. So think about twice the norm for your budget.
We always ask for clients to give questions prior to these calls. And one question that came in was, what do we anticipate the impact of logistics will be, and consumers fearful that products won't be available as the season goes on? Are they going to shift their spend up? Is it going to be earlier than anticipated? And I think the reality is, I think we are going to see earlier trends this year than we typically do. So if you're not doing these adjustments to your budgeting now, and you're not anticipating this earlier, you should be. Let's make sure you're on top of it earlier in the season this year.